Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined by Jake Ciely from The Athletic and by Pat Fitz-Morris. Guys, it has been a minute since we have done a show with the three of us. There were some technical difficulties going on. Then, of course, we had the holiday where we took a break on Thursday. Hope everybody enjoyed their Thanksgivings with their family, their friends, their football, all that fun stuff, their food as well. How'd you guys enjoy your Thanksgiving here? Jake, what'd you do?
Typical family stuff, and celebrated my 57th birthday for everybody that's trying to guess. It's not close to that.
I don't believe that for 1 minute.
That was somewhere in between 37 and 57. I'll give you that idea. But it was a good weekend because I still had the leftover cheesecake that we finally finished. Cinnamon roll cheesecake that we finally finished off yesterday.
Nice.
My mom makes it from scratch.
Fitz, you look great for 57. How are you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, we spent our Thanksgiving fostering a dog from the animal shelter where my wife volunteers that we have since adopted. So I should have known It was like less than a 1% chance we wouldn't wind up adopting this dog, and sure enough.
What kind?
Yeah, congrats.
It's a lab retriever. That's what it's listed as. We think there's probably some pit bull in there too. He's a mutt. For sure.
Labrador, you enjoy the hair for the rest of your life.
I know. That's the thing. Our other dog is a doodle, so there's no hair whatsoever, like no shedding. And yeah, this guy's going to shed. There's no question.
Yeah. Congrats to you and to your
you.
new dog, Nolan, for getting a nice home. He really does. Fitz was sending me pictures yesterday. There's a lot of stuff that's different about him and my dog, Wally, but the ears do look very similar when they kind of perk up. They look really identical. So maybe I think
the bigger question for you, Worm, is like, do you even know this reference of this? Do you know what Star Wars is, since you don't know what?
I know what Star Wars is. we did an 80s, and I know Star Wars came out in the 70s, but we did an 80s and 90s like trivia thing with Seth and Debro on one of their Twitch streams, and they had me and Erickson join because they were like, oh, the young guys, they never know anything, and I stomped all of them. I just want that on record that I missed questions on toys like the Cabbage Patch Kids and questions on like older video games, but every TV and movie question and pop culture I got right. So
do you know which Star Wars characters call Endor home?
The Ewoks.
Very good.
I played like Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the computer growing up. Like,
do you know the original song at the end of Return of the Jedi from the Ewoks that they ruined and replaced? Do you remember that one?
Like what it's called? No.
Like the Yub Yub? Do you actually remember the Yub Yub?
Yeah.
See? Okay. All right.
They played that in the background on the video game, which is how I know it. But I'm sure nobody cares about this here in Week 14. They are ready for us to get to some fantasy talk. So apologies to everybody for that detour. Quick reminder that all of our 2025 consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. This is our must starts, must sits, waiver ads, and touchdown calls show here. We pack a lot into our Thursday episodes. We're going to start with the waiver ads, as we usually do, and kind of ask if we're willing to start these guys. And guys, it is Week 14, so we are at the point where like this is do or die for a lot of teams. You either don't really care about this week because you're kind of locked into your standing, or this is like the start of the playoffs essentially for you. And there are 4 teams on bye. I forgot to write them down. It's the Patriots, the Niners, the Giants, and the Panthers are the 4. So those are the teams that are not playing this week. If you have any of those players in your lineups, be sure to take them out. Guys, let's start with the waiver ads here. Like I mentioned, Adonai Mitchell had a bit of a breakout here in his last game. Really strong performance, over 100 yards and a touchdown. Jake, I'll start with you. Is he somebody that here in Week 14 with 4 teams on bye that you're willing to consider starting?
I am, mostly because you saw the first game, 7 targets, only 2 receptions, mostly because of his own fault. Then he has 7 targets, 2 receptions, somewhat his fault, somewhat Tyrod Taylor's fault. And then they keep going back to him. So the 3 games since he's been playing for the Jets, actually on the field, 29.8 team target percentage. That's 6th in the league. Oh, by the way, 59.9% of his team's air yards is number 1 in the league. Again, it's a 3-game stretch. But my point here is that they're going to him, and then they're going to him again. Even if it's not connecting, I drew the comparison as what's the big difference between Adonai Mitchell and Alec Pierce or Troy Franklin when Troy Franklin was Troy Franklin. And that kind of gives you the idea of like, look, It's not a guarantee. I'm not calling Adonai Mitchell a top 20 wide receiver. This isn't somebody also, though, that we've never thought has talent. Like, he has talent. It just hasn't connected in the NFL. He's flashed at times with the Colts before he's with the Jets. So in the wide receiver 3 low-end conversation, when we have all those teams on a bye as that boomer bust play, most weeks a wide receiver 4, a Kayshon Boutte type, yeah, I'm willing to play it because it's going to be one of those situations. If I'm chasing ceiling, I'm chasing Mitchell. If I don't want the risk, he still falls in that risk bucket.
Fitz, Adonai Mitchell is wide receiver 29 in ECR. He was wide receiver 34 to start the week, so he's gone up 5 spots here just in the last couple of days. In fact, he's now 1 spot behind Rome Odunze, which if you told me that a month into the season, I would have thought you were crazy. But wide receiver 29, that's kind of in that range where you could go either direction depending on what the rest of your team looks like. Do you have him ranked in a similar range? Is he somebody you're willing to start here this week if you need the spot?
Yeah, wide receiver 31. Is that about where you are, Jake?
Yeah, very close. Yeah, right in that same range, right? Like right on the cusp of that 30s.
Yeah, and I did pick him up in like 3 leagues this week. And in the leagues where I did, I'm very desperate at wide receiver because of buys and injuries. Leagues where I have Stephon Diggs and Tyrone McMillan. I think a lot of the new AD Mitchell buyers are probably in pretty similar spots. What I like here, in addition to the air yards thing that Jake mentioned, the Jets now have this very condensed passing game. It's Mitchell, it's John Mechie, Breece Hall, a little bit of Mason Taylor. That's pretty much it. And Tyrod Taylor is giving the Jets a functional passing game, unlike Justin Fields.
Do you think that there's a chance this is like when you look at this, are you looking at this as more just an opportunity thing, or like this is a guy who has a lot of athleticism and a degree of talent? I mean, this was like a 2nd round pick in rookie drafts, like the year he came out, of the draft. So Jake, to you, is Adonai Mitchell somebody that could be actually taking a legitimate step forward as like a long-term fantasy asset, or is this just like, hey, they have nobody in the passing game, so we'll take advantage for a few weeks here, maybe finish out the season with him, and then next year, like, kind of falling back to earth? How do you view this long-term?
Can I say that, like, I'm not trying to straddle the fence, but somewhere in between? It's not mutually exclusive to say that he can break out and be what we hope that he could be in the NFL as somebody who also still wasn't a complete prospect and isn't a complete wide receiver. He still has his own faults. It still isn't a complete route runner. So all those things being said, though, like Garrett Wilson's still the number 1 on this team, but it also depends on what the quarterback situation is next year. Obviously, none of us are assuming that right now the quarterback for the Jets 2026 is the quarterback on the team right now. So that comes down to it. If it was still Tyrod, like maybe they don't find a solution and maybe they draft somebody later and then they hold off for 1 more year and just let Tyrod take the helm. With Garrett Wilson back, I think that Adonai Mitchell being right now where we're talking about him as potentially pushing the top 30, he just falls into a wide receiver 3 or 4 next year with Garrett Wilson, mostly because even though, as Fitz brought up, Tyrod is making it somewhat of a capable passing offense, it's still not a high volume one, and one that's still going to lean on the backfield that also throws to Breece Hall in that backfield. So he falls into that wide receiver 4. But yeah, if they end up with a top 2 pick and draft Mendoza or even more or somebody like that, you can see him in the wide receiver 3 conversation, even with a healthy Garrett Wilson.
Fitz, let's look at another receiver here. This Adonai Mitchell was number 1 as the waiver wire pickup in the consensus rankings this week. Number 2 is Jayden Higgins. He's wide receiver 36 in the rankings for this week. So again, kind of in that range where depending on how badly you need the spot, you might be forced to start him, but you could go another direction maybe, again, depending on who you have. So for you, is Higgins somebody that you're willing to consider starting in week 14?
Yeah, I'm right in line with ECR. I've got him at wide receiver 36 too. I think Jayden Higgins is really good and has a bright future, and I wish I had him in more dynasty leagues. I just wish he were playing more than about 60% of the offensive snaps every game, and he has been right there at 60%, like consistently every week. And that's just how Nick Caley wants to run it. He wants to give Xavier Hutchinson snaps too. I don't know why, because Jayden Higgins looks like he's a star in the making, but that's what's keeping Higgins as sort of a low-end wide receiver 3 for me.
Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm a little bit behind consensus, mostly because of what Fitz just said. And this is coming from somebody that missed on Higgins because I thought there was a good chance that he could be the number 2 from day 1 with no healthy Tank Dell, because I compared him to Marvin Jones. And like, you put Marvin Jones back in his heyday on this team, it is touchdown reliant. Like, this is Marvin Jones, only 1,000, 1,100 yards. He's never going for 1,500. But I thought that was the perfect fit alongside Nico Collins. And interesting enough, that Dane Brugler, my cohort, the draft prospect guide of guides, compared him to Nico Collins. I thought that was a little bit aggressive, but all that being said, is the ilk is there of the skill set. I agree with Fitz, and I would love to see more, but at the same time, it wasn't just the routes. It's that even on fewer routes for Hutchinson, CJ Stroud still targeted Hutchinson as much as he did Jayden Higgins. Like, I would almost prefer Davis Mills being back at quarterback, because at least he was targeting Higgins more consistently than CJ Stroud is. So I'm a little bit lower. I don't have him outside of my top 40, but I wish this was just a better scenario. Throw Higgins on some of these other teams and he's in a better case scenario.
Marvin Jones, there's a name I've not heard in a long time.
Speaking of Star Wars.
But it fits, doesn't it? Like, can't you see
Marvin Jones? I do like that comp a lot.
3 touchdowns in his last 6 games, but even with that, he has not finished higher than wide receiver 22 in that span of time in half PPR scoring. So the ceiling just has not been there given the usage, but we all like the player. We'll see what the usage continues to look like. I want to throw a running back in here. Chris Rodriguez going up against the Vikings. This is somebody who, like, has he been the most efficient runner in the world? No, but he's getting the opportunity here for this offense. He is, getting the opportunity to score touchdowns as much as this offense is scoring touchdowns. He's RB27 here at Minnesota. Jake, what do you think about that? Is that too high, too low, just right? Is he somebody you're willing to start?
I just looked. That's actually right where I have him. So I'm okay with it. It's just Rodriguez, if he gets a touchdown, he's like RB24. If he doesn't get a touchdown, he's like RB24. Like, he gets the yards or the touchdown. He doesn't seem to be able to put both together. I think he has one top 20 performance. And granted, that came in now that he is the clear lead. The Commanders have clearly turned to Rodriguez. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is more of a hold in dynasty and keeper leagues for next year, and maybe it clicks then. But he's not happening. We know McNichols is a timeshare piece in the passing game. So Rodriguez is the lead, but he's kind of, in my opinion, an uninspiring lead. He's somebody that if I just needed 6 points, which how many times do you're like, oh my God, 6 points is going to make or break it for me. Then you put in Rodriguez, but that's why he's in that range. Like, I have him right now with no Trey Benson, 1 spot behind Zonovan Knight, 1 spot in front of David Montgomery going tonight when we're recording this, which might look foolish by the time, because either David Montgomery RB28 is wrong. Either he's way higher or way lower. Like, there's no in between for him. But that kind of gives you the ideas. Like, Rodriguez on way more touches is kind of David Montgomery. It's funny enough to say.
Yeah, Fitz. He's got 11 carries, at least 11 carries in 3 of his last 4 games. But to Jake's point, he has been inside the top 20 just once. It was that game against Seattle, actually, against a really good defense, where he had 65 yards and a touchdown. And even then, he was just RB15. So a good day, but it's not like he was, inside the top 10 or anything. How do you see him? Is he somebody against a Vikings defense that can be run on at times this season? Is he somebody you're willing to start?
Yeah, so you mentioned at least 11 carries in 3 of his last 4, but he's only had more than 12 carries once this season, topping out at 15. So we can pretty much peg the carry total at around 10 to 12. There might not be a more format-sensitive running back in the league right now for fantasy. Like, in standard, sure, I'll start Chris Rodriguez. Half-point PPR, maybe. Full-point PPR, no thanks. No interest in starting a guy who's got 1 catch all season. So it really depends on the format, but in half PPR, I'm right in line with Jake. And ECR, I've got him running back 27.
Well, 1 catch, he's caught half his targets, Fitz.
Very impressive.
Yeah, that 1 catch came in week 11 in Miami, or against
honestly,
Miami.
That's not a great number.
Yeah,
50% catch rate.
Yeah, I guess. All right, let's go to play your flag players here. Jake, who are you planting your flag on this week?
Yeah, so I'm going to Chris Godwin, and it really comes down to, I never thought I'd be saying this after what we saw earlier this year, is the fact that Chris Godwin, when he first came back, all the way up to the point where he re-aggravated the injury, was like, man, Chris Godwin doesn't look right. He doesn't look like Chris Godwin. He doesn't look like healthy Chris Godwin. And then last week, from the jump in that game, I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh my God, he looks explosive. Like, he was separating like we remember Chris Godwin separating. And the best part about it is Baker Mayfield went to him and then went to him again and then kept going to him and kept going to him, kept going to him. I'm like, wow, this is the Chris Godwin, remember, who finished top 3 before the injury, where it was Baker Mayfield just loved looking his way. And I'm not saying he's top 3. I'm not even putting him as a wide receiver 1, but I am locking him right back into wide receiver 2, because all I needed was a healthy Chris Godwin. And maybe I'm overreacting to what I watched last week, but he looked healthy. And even if he's 95%, with Baker. Looking to him and that comfort level there. Even if Mike Evans comes back, I wouldn't trust Mike Evans in his first game back, and I'm a little dubious if he's really coming back this week, maybe next week. But either way, I think Chris Godwin is in the wide receiver 2 conversation, and potentially I'm starting him over Egbuka, no question about it, and I'd probably consider putting him inside my top 20 this week.
Okay, so that's very different than consensus. In ECR, he is wide receiver 31 in half PPR scoring for the week. Egbuka, by comparison, is up at wide receiver. Egbuka is up at 13. So there's like almost 20 spots gap between the two.
How is Egbuka at 13? What has he done in the last 6 weeks?
He's got a lot of targets.
I don't totally disagree. We actually do have Egbuka.
Who else has a lot of targets? Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker has 1 double-digit score since week 13. I don't care if they're not good. Their targets are just falling on the ground.
We do have more on Egbuka coming up, but it's interesting, like the wide gap there, and also even just setting Egbuka aside, the wide gap between where you are ranking Godwin and where he is ranked here. If you're considering
Before
him maybe
Fitz
even
jumps
top
in,
20,
because I'm so passionate about this, Egbuka is going to finish as wide receiver 1, and Chris Godwin's going to have 40 yards and 0 touchdowns. So just letting you know, because when I'm this passionate, it just completely goes the other direction.
Yeah, Fitz, how do you see Godwin specifically? I mean, like I said, ranked wide receiver 31 here. That's really low for where Jake sees it.
All right, so we disagree on Egbuka. We'll table that for now. But I agree with Jake. Like, Godwin did look good. I had the Buccaneers on the quad box last week, and I'm like, wait, is that Chris Godwin? Like, he looks fantastic. All 3 of his catches went for more than 20 yards, and he should have had a touchdown too. He just dropped it.
Yep.
I mean, that's pretty rare for Chris Godwin too. He's got a really reliable set of hands. So I saw the same thing Jake did, and but Mike Evans is practicing again. I don't know if there's a chance he could be back this week, but if he is, man, that's really going to complicate these Godwin, Egbuka, Buccaneers receivers conversations.
I'd slide him back. He'd be outside my top 20, but he wouldn't be outside my top 30, maybe even top 25. Like, it'd be enough to concern a little bit, but I wouldn't slide him back egregiously.
Fitz, who are you planting your flag on?
Well, let's go with the slot receiver motif. Jakobi Meyers. And he and Trevor Lawrence have clicked pretty instantly. Lawrence just seems to be good with tight ends and the slot guys, and outside receivers not so much. So in 4 games with the Jaguars, Meyers has an 85.7% catch rate and is averaging 11.7 yards per target. Only played 27 snaps in his first game with Jacksonville, had 41 yards. In the 3 games since, he's averaged 68 yards, and he's had a touchdown catch in each of the last 2 games. So I am working on the assumption here that Parker Washington doesn't play. I don't think, practiced on Wednesday. He left last week's game with a hip injury. If he plays, I'll probably have to chill out on Jakobi Meyers a bit. But right now, I think he's a really good start this week against the Colts.
Wide receiver 22 in ECR. Jake, he's been inside the top 20 in each of the last 2 weeks, getting a touchdown in each game. Where is he for you? Is he somebody that you're kind of on board with, Fitz, on this one, or pushing against?
I am just slightly behind, but that's only because my ranks will adjust. I put Drake London in for the argument, like, where would Drake London rank? So I put him in with that kind of conversation, not that I necessarily expected. T. Higgins is in with that situation. Marvin Harrison is in. So that right there would slide him up 3 spots. And I say that to say, because I also have Godwin in front of him, I'm technically behind consensus by 3, but I'd be right in line with it, assuming those 3 guys are out, and then the Godwin situation notwithstanding. So I'm with Fitz in this. And also, look at the last 2 games. Trevor Lawrence has been playing really well. Not necessarily so much in the completion department, but in the red zone and the touchdowns that he's getting. And this matchup similar to the past 2 weeks of what we've seen. Oh, by the way, Jaguars at home against the Colts. I don't know if anybody's heard, undefeated over the last however many games it's been. So the Jaguars are guaranteed to win. But I'm with Fitz, is that the connection is definitely more there with Jakobi Meyers and the slot work than it is with Brian Thomas. Can we get Mac Jones back for Brian Thomas? Like, I have this signed football still sitting here. I don't want it to go waste.
Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. Big news, Hard Rock Bet is now live in Michigan. Sign up today and place your first $5 sports bet. And if it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets on top of your winnings. And if you're more into casino games, new customers can get up to $1,000 back in casino bonus if you're not up money after your first 24 hours playing slots. Win money or get a casino bonus back. Plus, you also get 200 bonus spins, winnings paid in cash. Not sure what to place your first bet on? Head over to the Hard Rock Bet Stats Hub and it'll help you out. It's loaded with trends, streaks, and stats to help guide your picks. Numbers don't lie, and neither does the data in there. Hard Rock Bet offers new promos daily, plus big legendary reward drops every Thursday, like gifts under the tree. So whenever you're listening, just open the app and check out what you've got waiting for you. Download the Hard Rock Bet app and make your first deposit. Guys, let's get into our start-sit player debates here. We'll start, as always, with the running backs. Travis Etienne versus Kenneth Walker, two guys who have come up on the show a bunch this year because they've kind of been consistently ranked in this like iffy range, if we want to be starting them or not. So I figured let's put them head-to-head against each other here. Let me switch back over to running backs, see where they're currently ranked because I put this together yesterday. Walker's at RB 17, Travis Etienne is RB 18. So they are still back-to-back here in the rankings. Fitz, I'll start with you on this one. Would you rather be starting Travis Etienne or Kenneth Walker?
I would rather start Travis Etienne. And I know people are going to be spooked that Etienne completely bricked in a great matchup against the Titans last week. 12 carries, 28 yards, 1 catch, 13 yards. It's not like Bhayshul Tuten really did that much better against the Titans either. 8 carries for 17 yards, although he did get into the end zone. So for whatever reason, the Jags just couldn't get it done on the ground against the Titans. But before that bad game, Etienne had scored at least 14 half-point PPR points in 4 straight games, whereas Kenneth Walker's hit double-digit half-point PPR points just twice since the end of September, 2 times in the last 8 games. So I think Etienne has the higher ceiling and maybe the higher floor too.
Jake, what do you think?
We differ on this one, which feels good because we're back to the norm. We're agreeing way too much on the last one. And it's not a huge gap. I have Walker 2 spots in front of him. And I think a lot of people's concern was that, Charbonnet got all these touches. And he still gets the goal line touches. But 6 of his 14 were in the fourth quarter. And Walker didn't touch the ball in the fourth quarter. That game was out of hand. It was not a situation where Walker was even relevant for the fourth quarter. So I'm not that concerned about Charbonnet's touches last week. It's still Walker in the lead. They're still leaning to him more. I am still concerned that Charbonnet is going to take the goal line opportunities, but that's the concern that I have for Etienne too, is that Tuten's now taking the goal line opportunities. So in a toss-up situation like this, slightly trust Kenneth Walker more than Etienne, only because I think there's a bigger window to Etienne kind of like slipping up in game and them leaning on Tuten more than there is to Charbonnet for Walker, just because they've kind of made that switch. But it's close enough that just because we disagree, I don't think it's a huge gap. I don't think Fitz is crazy on this one.
Do you, Jake, disagree with the range that they're in, RB 17, RB 18, or do you have them in that same spot, just maybe a couple spots off?
I actually legitimately have 17 and 19.
Okay,
an idea.
So very, very close there.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. I mean, I was looking when I was putting together the names of who to kind of put head to head here. We've kind of run into this a few times where you get to that mid to late teens, especially at running back, and it really does feel like it's pretty obvious the guys ahead of these names should be ahead of them, and it's pretty obvious for the most part that the guys behind them should be behind them. They're kind of in that they should be here. You can maybe put them head to head against each other, but it would be, I think, kind of hard to make an argument for a lot of names behind them to being ahead of them, and vice versa for the names ahead of them. Does that feel similar to you, Fitz, where it's almost maybe a little bit of a tier break here?
Yeah, I do feel that way, Worm, where there's a tier break where you're feeling pretty good about the top 15 or 16 guys. Mostly good about the next guys all the way up to about 23 or 24, and then it gets really iffy after that.
Yeah, especially with this, 4 teams on bye. I can't stand that there's 4 teams on bye in week 14.
It's bad.
I really hate it how late it is in the season. I would love to, when I was a commissioner of a league last year, I wasn't even thinking about the buys in week 14, and I put a double championship week. And in order to do that, you have to start your playoffs in week 14. I just wish that was an option on the table for people, because I just don't like I don't like this current setup with 4 teams on bye this week. I'm
sure the NFL has its reasons for having some weeks be 6-team buys and some weeks be 2-team buys and having buys in week 14, but I would love to know what those reasons are.
Well, I just wish they would finish the buys in week 13. Why do they do no buys in week 13? I know I get that it's Thanksgiving. But you just have the teams play. I think you could just have fewer teams playing that week regardless. I don't think that would be a big deal.
What Fitz is saying, I don't know if anybody knows this, but it's really simple. 32 divided by 4 is 8. And then you could just do weeks 5 through 12
Yes.
Done. Very simple.
Yes.
I would be super on board with that.
You can even do one division at a time. Just boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom, down the list.
I have actually never considered that. That's a great idea. I would love the idea of just divisions getting the bye weeks. I can't believe I've never thought of that. That's an awesome idea. I don't know why they don't do that. They'll never listen to me on scheduling stuff. I feel like I complain on at least one show per week. I talk about the schedule.
We're a year or two away from 18 weeks and 2 buys per team anyway. So
yeah, that's a good point. All right, let's go to another running back here. Moving a little further down in the rankings. How about Devin Neal versus Woody Marks? A couple of rookies here, a couple of day 3 rookie draft picks here. These guys are both ranked in the 20s. They are back to back. Woody Marks is RB22. Devin Neal is RB23. Jake, I'll start with you on this one. And by the way, normally I know your guys' rankings ahead of time. I did have Jake's. Fitz, because he was busy adopting the dog, I wasn't able to get them by the time I was putting the show sheet together. So it's fun because I'm actually discovering if you guys are going to agree or not as we go along on the show. But these two are back-to-back in ECR, like I said. So Jake, who do you prefer, Marks or Neal?
It's Marks, and it's not the fact so much that like, oh my God, Marks has been amazing, but he is getting 15, 17 touches. It's just also turning into 60, 70 yards, not really with a touchdown. Not the best matchup. KC's worrisome. It's not as worrisome as it was last year, but that's where I'm going with this. Who's was worrisome as the Chiefs were last year? The Buccaneers. I do not want running backs facing the Buccaneers. The Texans are in that group. But Devin Neal versus Woody Marks, you flip these matchups, and I probably flip my ranks. I have a pretty decent gap here. I have Marks at 24 and Neal at 30, and that's without Kamara. I don't want running backs against the Buccaneers. They've been stomping a lot of people, especially in the second half of the season, and more talented running backs than Devin Neal. So that really is what it comes down to. I don't expect a ton from Woody Marks. He's only at 24, but like I said, I really don't want to start Devin Neal against the Buccaneers.
Fitz, is your decision in who you prefer to start here also largely driven by the matchup?
Yes, it is. And that's why I've got Devin Neal ranked higher. And it's great that Jake and I are dropping the gloves after so much agreement when Seth was filling in for you as host 2 weeks ago. Like that was, Jake and I were all kumbaya
Seth
for
brings
that
it out,
episode.
and that's what it
Exactly.
is.
So, it is about the matchup for me, and it's mostly about the pass catching potential. Like, it's weird that Woody Marks has been kind of a non-factor as a pass catcher. Like, coming out of college, I figured he was going to find his niche in the NFL as a third down back, but over his last 5 games, Woody Marks has 5 catches. But he's averaged, to Jake's point, 15.4 carries a game over that stretch, even though he's only averaging 3.6 yards per carry this season. So Devin Neal hasn't done all that much as a runner in his 2 games as a starter. 7 carries for 18 yards in week 12, 14 carries for 47 yards last week against a greatly improved Dolphins run defense. But Devin Neal has 8 catches for 65 yards over his last 2 weeks. And both guys have tough run game matchups this week. And I agree with Jake that the Chiefs' run defense has not been as tough as it's been the last few years. And the Buccaneers' run defense, always very tough and very tough this year under Todd Bowles. But the Buccaneers have really been giving it up to running backs in the passing game. They've allowed 681 receiving yards to running backs. That's 120 more receiving yards than any other team has given up to running backs. That's why I prefer Devin Neal here. I think his receiving numbers give him a pretty sturdy floor for this week.
How much of that chunk was Bijan and Gibbs, though? To be fair,
that's true. That's true. But like I do think 120 yards.
That's still a fair point. It's still a very fair point.
Which is the weird thing. I mean, I think the Buccaneers are giving up. Like they're in the bottom half as far as running back fantasy points allowed, despite how good their run defense actually is. It's all because of the receiving production they've given up.
There you go. See, we kind of somewhat came around together at the end of that.
Mostly,
makes
yes.
you feel a little bit better.
I do think it's a good point. Like, obviously, we haven't seen as much from Devin Neal this season, who was a player I liked coming out of college. Woody Marks, I do think it's interesting, Fitz, to your point about like not being used in the passing game. He also only has 1 touchdown, rushing touchdown since week 4. So, like, I mean, if you told me that from weeks 10 to 13, a guy like Woody Marks was getting 14, 18, 16, and 19 carries in those games, I would be like, oh, so he ended up being like a league winner this year, like on the Texans, getting that kind of workload. I would have been really excited for where he was going in drafts. but it's kind of been empty calories because the passing game work hasn't been there, particularly as of late, and the goal line work has not been there. So it's just been a lot of carries at a middling efficiency. There's only so far that can take you. I mean, for the last 5 games, he's been under 8 fantasy points in half PPR scoring. That's kind of incongruous with the level of workload we're getting from him on the ground. So, and it's not like the Chiefs are an easy matchup, like, talking about the matchup side of things. So I'm kind of with you in being like hesitant on Marks, but I guess I'm kind of down on both these guys. I don't love that they're both ranked inside the top 24, but that kind of is what it is. The 4 teams on bye and all the injuries you have at this time of year. Is that, would you say that's fair, Fitz, that like regardless of putting them head to head, like being inside the top 24 is maybe a little higher? Or do you have them both ranked as RB2s?
No, I've got Neal at 23 and Marks at 26.
Okay. So roughly in the same range here.
Both of these guys are kind of out of the circle. I've got the 2 Bears at 21 and 22, and once you get past them, I think that the safety is kind of gone.
I was just going to say that it feels like a tier break to me because in ECR, Swift and Monangai are 20 and 21, and then Marks are 22 and 23. The gap in my, how I've had my confidence level in starting these guys between Monangai and Marks just feels very different, even though, the Bears are going up, in Green Bay here. All right, let's get to the wide receivers. Jake, let's get to, we alluded that this was going to come up, Emeka Egbuka versus Justin Jefferson, which is a really interesting one. Obviously, the Vikings have just, had this horrible carousel at quarterback this year. Regardless of who has been there, it just has not really worked outside of Carson Wentz for a few games. So Justin Jefferson continues to slide down the weekly rankings each week going in, and people nobody's dropped him off a cliff, but it's been little by little he's gone down a couple of spots each week as the quarterback situation has gotten worse, or at least not gotten better. So now we sit here with Emeka Egbuka at wide receiver 13 and Justin Jefferson at wide receiver 14. They are back to back here, just outside the top 12 of the position. From what we talked about earlier, I think I know what direction you're going here, Jake, but who do you like better, Egbuka or Jefferson?
Well, to be fair, I have both of them way under consensus because for my argument right here, Jefferson and Egbuka have been the exact same thing. Since the change at quarterback, since we lost Carson Wentz, which, by the way, can we just get one-arm Carson Wentz back for this team? Because then we'd be excited about Justin Jefferson. Play with one arm, dude. Who cares? It's your non-throwing arm. But the point is, since it's been anybody but Wentz, Justin Jefferson around the exact same time that Egbuka hit the rookie wall. And I put that in quotes because, that's not what I'm thinking is happening to Egbuka. I've been watching all the games. It really comes down to it, and you can see it in the numbers, too. It's a 20 percentage point, which means it's a lot more than 20%. He went from 7% of his targets being off target from Baker Mayfield to 27% of his targets being off target since that flip in week 6. And it's not just that Baker Mayfield's not throwing his way. It's just he's getting defensive attention. Some of the balls aren't catchable. He's still getting a lot of targets, but so is Justin Jefferson. And that's why I put him in the same bucket. That's why I have him as low-end wide receiver 2s, is because, all the targets are great, but all the targets in the world, I made my joke about Trey Tucker, and everybody wants Trey Tucker to be a thing. All the targets don't matter for Jack Diddley if you're not catching them. And I do think Egbuka can rebound down the stretch, especially if Chris Godwin is starting to look 100%. If Mike Evans comes back, then you just pull off all this defensive attention that Egbuka has rightfully been getting. But until that click happens, I'm just going to have him as a low-end wide receiver 2. I'm not burying the guy. I'm still starting him as a wide receiver 2. I'm still starting Jefferson as a wide receiver 2. But I think now with Godwin being 100%, I would go Godwin then Egbuka, which means I very closely take Jefferson over Egbuka. It's by 2 spots.
What do you make, Jake, of Jefferson, the target share going down just in the last couple of weeks? I mean, he was, 12.
Well, one of those was a Brosmer game.
Yeah,
Brosmer targeted the other team as much as he targeted Justin Jefferson. Let's be fair.
That is fair. It's just funny because you talk about he's still getting the targets, and so you look at the last 4 weeks, it went from 12 to 9 to 6 to 6. So the last 2 weeks being 6 and 6. Now, obviously, that Seattle game was really weird. He didn't get targeted the whole for a very long time at the beginning. Throughout the first half of the game. That had to have been the worst game of his career, right? Since basically week 3 of his rookie season. I didn't actually go back and look, but I can't imagine there's been a worse one. Fitz, when you look at these two head to head, when you think about Egbuka versus Jefferson, are you thinking more about and it sounds like you like Egbuka better. Are you thinking more that you like Egbuka or more that you dislike Jefferson?
My thinking about this is sort of quarterback related. Like
I was going to say, I was going to jump in and say he dislikes JJ McCarthy, which is rightfully so.
Yeah, that's it. And I know Egbuka's been in a slump, but it's certainly not for lack of targets. He's had at least 8 targets in 6 straight games, and there's only been one time all season where he's seen fewer than 7 targets in a game. I think the slump is more about Baker Mayfield than Egbuka. Like, Mayfield has averaged under 6 yards per pass attempt over his last 6 games, but that said, I am betting on Baker Mayfield over J.J. McCarthy every day and twice on Sundays. So, and by the way, about Jake's point with Carson Wentz, like, if the one-armed man in The Fugitive could commit murder with just one arm, do you think all we're asking from Carson Wentz is just complete a few forward passes? So it seems like not a lot to ask.
And to go back to this too, like, again, I have them almost back to back. If you want to go with Egbuka, I'm fine with it. And part of it, and maybe that's just me trying to predict games, which is always just risky. But I just think the Buccaneers can get away with this game, even leaning on Bucky Irving 20 times. Like, they don't need to throw a ton in this one, especially with Baker Mayfield not being 100%. So that's part of what I'm including in my ranks with this as well.
I was going to say, I don't think either of you mentioned like the specific matchup. Jefferson gets the Commanders, which has had a few games this year where they have been just absolutely torched.
Few,
so that
most
by better quarterbacks than JJ McCarthy.
Fair.
That's
fair.
I mean, it's a very long list, to be fair, Fitz.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
True.
It's the stoppable object against the movable, stoppable force against the movable object. By the way, I have seen The Fugitive. I know you were going to ask me about it, so I have seen it. All right.
I don't care. You get that reference there?
I do. Yeah. It's Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes. There you go.
All right, let's go to Christian Watson versus Ladd McConkey. Watson has been, really good since coming back to the lineup here, Fitz. We have been talking about it for a couple of weeks. He continues to just like reinsert himself really, really well into this offense. Coming off of the devastating knee injury last December, he is now one spot in the rankings behind Ladd McConkey. Interestingly, these are the two guys behind. It goes Egbuka at 13, Jefferson at 14, Ladd McConkey at 15, Christian Watson at 16. So we're kind of playing in this same sandbox here in the area of the rankings. So Fitz, Christian Watson for you or Ladd McConkey this week?
I think ECR is too high on both guys. Watson because he's not a prolific target earner, and we could. I think it's better than 50-50 the Packers get Jayden Reed back this week, which further jeopardizes the Watson targets. Like, he does get high-value targets. So I do have him ahead of Ladd McConkey, who I've kind of steadily been sliding down in the rankings. Like, I'm terrified by the Chargers quarterback situation. We've got either the one-handed man, Justin Herbert, or Trey Lance in a pretty terrifying matchup against the Eagles. Maybe not terrifying, but like the Eagles, I think have allowed, the 4th fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers. So for all the problems that team is having, I don't think pass defense is really one of them. I would rather play Watson than McConkey.
For what it's worth on Herbert, and it's still Thursday, so with those teams playing on Monday, we don't really know yet. But Dr. Deepak Chona from Sport MD Analysis, who we do a lot of fun stuff with here at Fantasy Pros, he tweeted last night that, it's crazy, but Herbert really could play, this week, even with the hand surgery. Like, he's not at all ruling him out here. He was saying that he would expect more shotgun in that game and obviously a bigger run game emphasis in general, just to take some of the workload off Herbert, but that he's, leaving it open that he could play. By the way, on Christian Watson, just a note from Debro here that he tweeted yesterday. Since week 11, he's wide receiver 12 in fantasy points per game, 82.4% route percentage, 28.2 target percentage, almost 60 yards per game, 2.5 yards per route run, and a 36% first read share. Those are from some notes from Debro there. So, Jake, when you hear those and thinking about some of the injury stuff with the Chargers offense, are you interested in Watson, or would you rather be starting Ladd?
Oh, 100%. I was campaigning for Watson in the waivers as soon as he was coming back, and every time since, actually the show you missed, I even talked about Watson during that one with Seth. And, I would agree with Fitz if it wasn't this year. 17 targets over the last 2 games for Watson. And I know Reed could come back, but this is the one area like I'm going to actually push. It's funny that at the end, I'm actually going to agree with Fitz to make this clear, but I'm going to push back in disagreement a little bit differently is I do think Reed coming back can help, but I think Reed helps what they're lacking right now. They're lacking Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft was a big part of what was making the passing game click. And I think Reed coming back is going to fill the Tucker Kraft void more so than threaten Christian Watson. I do think, of course, like 17 targets in 2 games, maybe it's 14. I think Christian Watson's still going to get his. So I have Christian Watson in front of Ladd. I also have Trey Lance in the ranks because I'm banking on that versus because the easy answer is if it's Justin Herbert, what do we do? Most people know. I would move up Ladd, but not that much. That's where we are complete agreement. It's 1, Watson over Ladd, and then 2 is I'm not going to move him up that much even with Herbert, just because you look at the charges of late, even before the injury to Herbert. It's been a little bit more run heavy. It was actually the run heaviest they've been the entire year last week, but again, hurt in game by Justin Herbert. But if they get Hampton back, I know there's a lot of moving pieces with the Chargers, but if they get Hampton back, why turn to Herbert or Lance more than you need to? And it comes down to Ladd would be the only wide receiver I would trust, but it's hard to trust him as a wide receiver 1, which I have Christian Watson pushing the wide receiver 1 range. I have him top 15. I have Ladd more down. I'm behind consensus on Ladd. I have him down at 18, 19.
Herbert's awesome, but like, even if he was fully healthy and didn't have this hand issue, I'd be a little nervous about him going up against, like, with that offensive line against the Eagles. Like, so you throw in the injury concern, it just makes it that much more heightened and the potential that he doesn't even play.
Yeah,
but
2 arguably Pro Bowl tackles that are out. I mean, it's going to
against this team is
right.
Like
the one thing I will say is that the Eagles aren't man heavy, but the man coverage that they do run, they've actually been exploited quite a bit by man capable wide receiver like Jameson Williams. George Pickens is better against man than he is against zone, more so than CeeDee Lamb, and he had a better game than Lamb in that one. So Ladd would be the one that would benefit the most if Herbert's out there. I'm just pointing that out. It's a bad matchup, but Ladd would be the one that could benefit the most from the Chargers wide receivers, but all our concerns are still valid.
Yeah. Let's go to some of these rapid fire start sit decisions. We'll move a little quicker through this section. Running back 1 here, Kareem Hunt versus Chris Rodriguez. Actually, when I was putting this together, I forgot that we were already talking about Rodriguez, but I do think it's an interesting one. They are very close in ECR. Who do you guys prefer between Hunt going up against this really tough Houston defense or Chris Rodriguez, who we already talked about? Jake, I'll start with you.
It's early. I said I don't want to start running backs against the Texans, but I mean, if you're going to tell me 2 bad matchups and one offense I trust more than the other to potentially get a touchdown, it's Kareem Hunt. But it's narrow, and I wouldn't be surprised if Pacheco looked somewhat okay in his first game back if he steals more this week. So I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but these are guys that are both outside my RB2 range.
Fitz.
Yeah, I agree with Jake here. Hunt, we talked about how TD dependent Chris Rodriguez is, doesn't offer anything as a pass catcher. Hunt also somewhat TD dependent. He's had 8 touchdowns this season, 5 in his last 5 games, but he does at least provide some other value. He's had at least 40 rushing yards in 5 straight games. Hunt has 14 catches for 114 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Tough matchups for both, like Jake said. But like Pacheco might not be that much of a threat to Hunt's. Like Hunt, I know it was Pacheco's first game back. Hunt outsnapped him 42-20, outtouched him 15-5. I doubt that completely flips. Like maybe it gets a little closer to 50-50, but I kind of think Kareem Hunt is their lead guy now.
Where would Hunt rank for you guys this week compared to Marks and Neal? Because he's in that same range in ECR, Fitz.
I have got Hunt, let's see. I've got him 1 spot ahead of Marks at RB25 and 2 spots behind Devin Neal.
Jake, similar range?
I go Marks, Hunt, Rodriguez, Neal.
Okay.
I clearly hate Devin.
Oh, yeah. Do I have Rodriguez lowest of these guys? Yeah, I do.
He's lowest in ECR, but it's very close. They're all within about 5 spots of each other in that kind of mid-20s range. All right, let's go to the wide receiver one I have here. How about Rome Odunze or DK Metcalf? Obviously, Odunze has fallen off quite a bit here, Jake, since where he was in the first month of the season, going up against a DK Metcalf in a Steelers offense that has been really bad as of late themselves. So Odunze or Metcalf?
Can I say neither? I mean, I don't
know.
No. they're both pushing the bottom of the wide receiver threes for me at this point. Like, I have DK at 29 and Odunze at 31. Odunze kind of falls into the Egbuka conversation, but even worse because the targets aren't there, because the Bears aren't passing that much. When they do, they have a litany of options to go to. Everyone from Loveland and the tight ends all the way up to now Burden is more involved, which we hoped for, but it's trying to predict a DJ Moore game versus an Odunze game versus a Burden game versus the tight ends and in the backfield. Oh, by the way, they're facing the Packers in Green Bay in cold weather. Why not just run the ball a billion times like you have been? So I will go DK barely, but I really don't want to start. I don't want to start DK Metcalf against the Ravens, but if you gave me the toss-up like a Odunze at this point, I'd give him the slightest of edges.
Yeah, Fitz, I'm curious what you say. It's funny, I was going back to look. I was like, I don't remember what Odunze did. I don't even remember the Bears playing the Packers. How did that first game go? And I realized they haven't played yet. I don't know why, because like the Ravens-Steelers is the same thing. They haven't played yet.
On my podcast, he did the same thing last night. He was like, what did they do the first time around? Because we were talking about Burden. And I was like, they haven't played yet.
Yeah, I was like, there's a reason I can't remember. Yeah. But I feel like the NFL's done this a lot, where they have a lot of, like this year, a lot of these, like the Ravens played the Bengals like 2 out of 3 weeks, or like they're in the middle of that now. Hadn't played the Steelers yet till week 14. Similar here with Bears and Packers. They play 2 of the next 3 weeks. Hadn't played yet getting to this late in the season. I don't know if that was intentional by the NFL or just kind of how it worked out. But we have not seen this matchup yet here, Fitz. What do you expect out of Odunze in comparison to DK Metcalf?
Like Jake, I'm sort of not real excited about either of these guys, but I would play Odunze. Like, I just had this nagging feeling before the season that Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf would be an oil and water pairing. And they somehow made it work for a little while. Like, DK had 4 touchdowns in his first 5 games, had some long catch and runs, but it's not working anymore. Metcalf has finished with fewer than 50 receiving yards in 5 straight games, fewer than 60 receiving yards in 7 straight games. Since the start of November, DK Metcalf is averaging 4.5 yards per target. And things haven't really been that great for Odunze either. He had 114 yards against the Ravens, Worm, as I'm sure you remember, in Week 8. Since then, only 13 catches for 188 yards and a touchdown. That's over 5 games. He's wide receiver 60 in PPR fantasy points per game over that stretch, and has a 38.2% catch rate in his last 5 games. But like, I don't think Odunze is fundamentally mismatched with his quarterback the way Metcalf is. So I wouldn't be all that surprised if Odunze, he could get hot again, but I would be utterly shocked if Metcalf got hot again with Aaron Rodgers.
Let's stick with the Bears for our first flex head-to-head here. Kyle Monangai versus Zay Flowers. Now, Monangai didn't practice on Wednesday with an ankle issue, so keep an eye on that.
It's Wednesday.
I was going to say it is Wednesday, but it did happen. So just pay attention there. Obviously, he's coming off of an excellent game against Philly. Zay Flowers coming off a real dud. Everybody knows how I feel about Flowers. They're ranked very close in ECR. Flowers is a few spots higher. So Zay Flowers, Jake, or Kyle Monangai.
How you feel? Can we just laugh about that for a second? Like, if there's one thing we definitely got right about the Ravens is don't draft Zay Flowers, because Zay Flowers.
I was screaming it from the mountaintops.
But here's the thing, like you said, a dud, but if you look at the games since week 4, 26, 32, 47, 28, 33, 30, 21, 30, that was our point about Zay Flowers, is he's a wide receiver 3, and he's just going to hover in that range because, oh, by the way, what does he not do, Worm? You know what this is. Doesn't catch touchdowns. He has 1. And that was back in week 1 when he was wide receiver 1 of all things, of course. But all that being said, that's why I'll lean to Monangai, because I lean to this being run heavy. It's going to be super cold weather, which usually presents a better opportunity for the run game because it mutes the passing game. Not like if there's snow out there, but enough to say like they lean on the run game for this one, hopefully against the Packers. That's what they try to do anyway to try and win this game. So I give Monangai the slight edge. Zay Flowers would be, as crazy as to say, as the backup running back, you would seem it would be more of that boomer bust play, but Zay Flowers is still boomer bust to me. Like, if you want to potentially, hopefully he gets a touchdown and finishes a top 15 wide receiver, cool. It rarely happens, but I would give Monangai the slide. They're very close in my rankings. They're within 10 spots of each other in the flex rankings, but I'm going to go Monangai.
I will give Zay some credit. Like, should have had a touchdown on Thursday against the Bengals. There was that 50-yard OPI call. Yeah, like there could have been more here. If he just caught that touchdown, then they didn't call the OPI and everything else is the same, though. Like, he would have finished in the same range of points that he has the last 5 weeks, like 10, 8, 10, 9, 9. Like that's where he would have been with that catch, and if nothing else changed. So it's not like that would have given him a huge boom week.
One of the worst offensive pass interference calls this year.
I can't talk about that game. That was just like utterly painful. But yes, like I said after week 1, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes like months before he catches another touchdown. And lo and behold, he has not got a touchdown since week 1. That was like by a mile his best game of the season. We all know how I feel about that.
So for Fitz, before I have Monangai at 46, Flowers at 50. So, like, if you are smiling because you're going to disagree, I'm not going to be like, oh, my God, you're crazy.
No, I was smiling because you live in Virginia and you're saying it's going to be super cold in Green Bay. It's going to be in the low 20s, Jake. We just call that a pretty typical winter day up here.
I thought game time it was supposed to be single digits because it's the afternoon game. Is that not?
It is a late afternoon. Maybe that's it. Maybe I was looking at an earlier time. I forgot.
It's supposed to be like a high of 17. So that's
not the ice ball.
That's like a light windbreaker for people who live in Wisconsin.
Exactly. A light windbreaker. Get the hell out of here. That's all right. Hold on. This is weather bug promotion. Weather bug. No, actually now Fitz is supposed to be a high of 12 at game time. So there you go.
That's a little chilly.
It is funny, just quickly, Fitz, how you get used to it. Like I went, this is like in college, I went skiing up in Quebec on a ski trip over New Year's, and it was like on average like -8 degrees during our trip. And then like 2 weeks later, I went skiing down in like Virginia or Pennsylvania or somewhere further south, and it was like 12 degrees, and all the people I was with were so bundled up, and I felt like I was borderline sweating because I got so used to just how frigid it was when it was in the negatives that like 20 degrees warmer, even though it would normally be very cold to me, did feel warmer. So like there is something to like you do get pretty used to it if you're there long enough and in those conditions.
Yes. And you learn those. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I usually ski with a long sleeve and an open jacket, so like it doesn't bother me much. But single digits is still single digits.
Yeah. Well, you learn
if you've ever played football, that thing turns into a freaking rock.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like.
You learn the pro tips when you go to Packers games in December, like you're supposed to put newspapers under your feet, and that helps keep your feet warmer, even if you're wearing like thick boots.
Really?
Yeah. That actually works. I noticed a difference when I did that. Anyway,
I was at the. You remember real quick? We'll move on. Remember the ice bowl for the Giants where they were throwing snowballs and knocked out the coach for the Vikings? Remember that?
I think I do. Yeah.
I was at the game before that where there was ice on the ground. We were legitimately buying hot cocoa just to pour it on the ground to try and melt the ice because the feet were so cold. Wow. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, so you're going to hate this for him. I'm taking Zay Flowers here. I know he hasn't scored in a long time, but you know he's actually weirdly given us this safe floor where he's averaging 5 catches and 64 receiving yards a game. He's only last week with the 6-yard game. That was only the 3rd time this season he's had fewer than 58 receiving yards. And Monangai, it's just, we do these rankings in half-point PPR, and an average of 5 catches a game. That's 2.5 PPR points a game. Monangai offers really next to nothing as a pass catcher, but obviously more touchdown equity. He's gotten into the end zone 4 straight games. I'm not dissing Monangai. The Bears are 2nd in the league in rushing yardage. Since their bye, they've averaged 179.6 rushing yards a game. So I think Flowers is a little bit safer in half-point PPR. In standard scoring, I'd start Monangai, and I think if you need to land a haymaker, if you're a big underdog, I'd probably start Monangai.
We're going to talk more about this tomorrow, Fitz, so I'll save that for now. But I will just say, like, I am also a little bit nervous about just like Lamar has been bad as of late, and the Steelers are the team he struggles against most. Now, it's a worse Steelers defense than he usually faces, but like this is the team historically that he is his worst against. It's like the Steelers and the Chiefs.
He's also not 100% right now. It's clear.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been getting in a lot of arguments on Twitter with folks who are trying to troll me about Lamar, and the injury. I mean, he's on the injury report again. He's limited. He actually did practice on Wednesday this week for the first time in like a month, but he was still limited with all this lower body stuff. Let's go to Zach Charbonnet or Xavier Worthy. Fitz, I'll start with you on this one. Charbonnet or Worthy?
Charbonnet. It's just a really tough matchup for Worthy against the Texans. I mean, Texans are kind of a slot funnel as far as their passing game, and I mean that doesn't leave too much for the outside receivers. And when in doubt, this is the Bob Harris rule. Go with the running back over the wide receiver in flex decisions, and I don't see any reason to go against that rule here.
What do you think, Jake?
Same thing. Really, what Fitz said too is they've given up the Texans three wide receivers have hit 100 yards against them, and it was Nakua, Jackson Smith, and Jake, which, by the way, not in the ilk of those ones. And then Khalil Shakir, slot, by the way, which actually Nakua and Jackson Smith and Jake would do a lot of. So complete agreement on this one.
Let's go to another flex one here. Jake, Jordan Addison or Zonovan Knight?
I don't want to touch JJ McCarthy. Like, I'm willing to roll the dice with Justin Jefferson. I'm not willing to do it with anybody else. And maybe TJ Hawkinson if I was desperate, because all of a sudden he's looking Hawkinson's way late in the season. But now I'm Bam Knight, assuming there's no Trey Benson. If Trey Benson does come back, but it doesn't seem like it's happening, which also means he's not going to play this season because he's only a few days out from you can't come back, period. I'm just going to go with the running back it's the Bob Harris thing again. I know he's getting touches. I don't know if Jordan Addison gets one reception, honestly.
Right. Yes.
Addison, interestingly, he is ranked. I wanted to ask about him just because of the Vikings offense and the state of everything. He is ranked higher. He is ranked actually right behind Zach Charbonnet. I could have put the two of them together based on ECR, and it would have been a reasonable conversation. That does feel way too high, which is why I was kind of aiming in a different range here, at least based on ECR. Fitz, how do you see it, Addison or Knight?
Same way Jake sees it. I mean, Bam has had 11 catches in his last 3 games. He's actually giving us some receiving value, and he's had double-digit carries in 3 of his last 4 games. I mean, Jordan Addison is a better football player than Bam Knight. Full stop. Not close. But I don't want to start J.J. McCarthy's number 2 receiver.
And it might be a number 3 receiving option. Also, to give you a bonus, where I'm going to jump in, because I'm curious, because I threw this out on my podcast last night. I'm curious what Fitz thinks. I made a case for playing Vile over Jordan Addison at this point.
Yeah. Wow. Hold on. I want to see. I might actually have Vile ranked higher. No, I have Addison 39 and Vele 42. It's really close.
But they're that close.
There is a case, no question. And who would have thought we'd be making that decision and, back this summer. One of those things you couldn't have imagined possibly contemplating.
Yeah. One more flex one here. Luther Burden or Bhayshul Tuten, a couple rookies here. Again, Fitz, who do you prefer?
Oh, I'm a Luther truther, man. His recent uptick in usage, really encouraging. Had his highest snap shares of the season in his last 2 games. Only about 50%, but still, Burden has had at least 5 targets in 3 straight games, at least 4 catches, at least 3 catches in 4 straight games. He's even had 2 rushing attempts the last couple of weeks. This will be the last game Luther Burden plays at age 21. He turns 22 on December 12th. Maybe he can give us a breakout game before he turns into an old man. And Tuten, he had double-digit carries once this season. He's had more than 30 rushing yards twice. He's had 3 catches in his last 6 games. He's a handcuff. There are only trace amounts of standalone value here with Bhayshul Tuten.
Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, but he is their goal line option. All that being said, I'm higher on consensus than both, and I have him legitimately back-to-back in the flex. So I am good with going both. But in so much in the fact that the Luther Truther, I am one of the same. I had him in my tier 1 of rookie wide receivers, and I actually have him higher than DJ Moore this week, to give you an idea of how much of a Luther Truther I am with you, Fitz.
Nice.
I was hoping you were going to say that you liked Tuten so we could have Truther Burden versus Bhayshul Truthen and go head to head here.
All right, everybody. That's us for this week.
Sadly can't go out on that high note. We got a couple more names here. Quarterback Lamar Jackson, who I don't think we've asked about all year, but people are asking about, at what point is this thing going to turn around for a guy that you drafted to be a set it and forget it, elite quarterback option? Obviously has not been that for a month. Dealing with injury stuff we've talked about a lot, and now going up against the Steelers defense that's given him trouble in the past. He's QB 8. Baker Mayfield is QB 9. So who do you like better of those two, Jake? Lamar Jackson or Baker Mayfield?
I still have I was lower than most last week on Lamar. I am again, but I still have him in front of Baker because here's how I'm looking at it. The chance that he's even close to 100% and starts running more again. The biggest thing we're losing from Lamar is the running. And also, it's affecting his throws. You see it. He's sailing passes because the foot isn't 100%. But Baker Mayfield's not 100%. And Baker Mayfield, if you go back and watch that Buccaneers game, the few times he did run, you saw him, especially on that one play where he dove purposely to the, he kind of went down and he was you could see he was trying to protect the arm. That's the concern because you avoid, Baker finally started running a little bit more of late. Then he gets hurt. So you have that that concern. And it goes back to my whole argument about this game in general, is that the Buccaneers can run in this game to win this game, unless it goes sideways, which we've seen so far because it's the NFL. But I'm just going to take the chance that Lamar is anywhere near 100% versus risking Baker Mayfield in a game where they don't need him to even throw much, which he hasn't done the past 2 games.
Lamar Jackson, last 3 games, QB 29, QB 25, QB 27. Fitz, for me, it's not even so much about him running. It's about his ability to just evade pressure in the pocket. He can't accelerate and decelerate the way that we're used to watching from him. And this offensive line is not very good. And it's just really, I think, messed with his throwing, let alone whatever he's doing on the ground. Obviously single digit scoring 3 straight weeks, just not what you come to expect from a guy of Lamar Jackson's stature. So for you, are you considering starting somebody like Baker Mayfield over him, or are you still sticking with Lamar?
Nope. Lamar has the higher profile slump, but Baker's been in a slump too. He has not averaged 7 passing yards per attempt in a game since week 6. Baker Mayfield. He's averaged 5.5 yards per attempt, which is completely anemic over his last 6 starts. And he's only had 1 game with multiple touchdown passes over his last 6 starts. So, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson would not have had a single-digit point total last week if Isaiah Likely hadn't screwed up and if he hadn't had a touchdown pass wiped out by a penalty. So, we know what Lamar's ceiling looks like, and I think he could get back to it, even though, yes, historically has not done well against the Steelers. I'm playing Lamar over Baker, no question.
To your point, that game against the Bengals was a couple of inches away from being a 300-yard passing day with a couple of passing touchdowns.
Yep. PI
so
and hold on to the ball, and he has 2 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah. Tight end, Oronde Gadsden going up against the Eagles, very tough matchup, or Harold Fannin Jr. going up against the Titans. Fitz, who do you like better?
Oh, Worm, I don't like either guy's spot. Thanks for giving us such an unappealing choice.
You're welcome.
Gadsden, as of right now, I've got him tight end 10, but if Justin Herbert doesn't play, I'm probably going to drop Gadsden out of the top 15, and maybe tight end 10 is already too high. I've got Fannin at tight end 11. I reluctantly moved him ahead of Colston Loveland. But man, Fannin's quarterback is a rookie making his 3rd NFL start, Shedeur Sanders. He's playing a game with a Vegas total of 34. That's on Hard Rock Bet. I think it's 33.5 in some other spots. And the Titans have actually been pretty stingy against tight ends this year. 9th fewest points allowed to the position. I don't like the spot for either guy. Gadsden, but just hold your nose and start him if Justin Herbert starts.
I'm stuck making our tight end pick in the touchdown calls contest, so I wanted to drag you guys down with a gross tight end question too.
Don't pick either of these guys.
I will not. Jake, Gadsden or Fannin?
I'm going Fannin no matter who the quarterback is. And it's not like I'm super excited for Fannin. I have him tight as 11, but it just comes down to a 100% Herbert. We talked about the passing game concerns earlier with Ladd and everything involved with the Chargers. And yeah, Sanders is making his 3rd, but Sanders is showing the good things we knew about him from coming from college, is that he makes some smart throws, a high percentage last week, and he looked Fannin's way. He kind of treated Fannin as his number 2 that entire game. Has kind of grown the stretch, including the opportunities and routes between Fannin and Njoku. So I'm not super excited about him. He's a low end tight. He's barely a tight end 1, but just taking that over what we've seen. Honestly, Gadsden has been almost non-existent since his breakout stopped and all these issues started to happen. Very similar target shares, very similar targets per game for Fannin and Gadsden. So I'm just going to take the questions out of it. And I know I'm trusting a rookie to take the questions out of it, but the point being is I don't have to worry about Lance. I don't have to worry about a non-healthy Herbert. So I get what I like. It's tight end. The Gadsden touchdown is going to throw this out the window if it happens. Gadsden catching a touchdown would just mean he finishes as a top 10 tight end.
Yeah. Say goodbye to start-sit dilemmas with Fantasy Pros start-sit assistant. Within seconds, you'll know exactly who to play for optimal results each and every week. Leveraging insights from numerous experts, the start-sit assistant aligns your lineup decisions with the top minds in fantasy football, giving you a competitive edge. Maximize your lineup's potential with just a few clicks. Head to fantasypros.com/myplaybook or download the Fantasy Pros app and make winning decisions in no time. We're about to get to our touchdown calls for the week, but first, join our free touchdown calls contest in the Fantasy Pros Discord. Each week, pick 4 players you think will score with a bonus flex worth double. Weekly winners get a $25 Fantasy Pros gift card, and the season champ takes home a signed Bijan Robinson jersey. Play now by going to fantasypros.com/chat and heading to the Touchdown Calls channel. All right, we're on to our touchdown calls here. Jake, you're on running back this week.
Yeah, I'm going to take what feels like a little bit of a layup. I got to get right after I think I missed 2 in a row, including one being a tight end, because of course. But going against what is hopefully a shootout and what is hopefully one of the best, or what is one of the best running backs at finding the end zone against a team that is giving up plenty of running back points, touchdowns, yards, everything. Going against the Bengals, I'm taking James Cook to get in the end zone, which, like I said, this almost feels like a given, especially for the fact that they just gave up 2 to 1 being Henry and 1 Keaton Mitchell just last week.
Fitz, you're on wide receiver.
I'll take Courtland Sutton. He scored a touchdown against the Commanders last week, just his second TD in his last 8 games. Hasn't had TDs in consecutive games since weeks 2 and 3. But he's going to do it this week. Courtland Sutton reasserts himself as the Broncos' alpha receiver and has a big game against the Raiders.
So James Cook and Courtland Sutton so far. I'm on tight end. I am going with Mark Andrews. And obviously I've talked a lot about how I'm nervous about what Lamar is going to do here, against the Steelers and during his slump. But Mark Andrews signed a very surprising to me 3-year contract extension yesterday. That my jaw was on the floor when I saw that, and the money they gave him, and this clearly means I think clearly that they're going to let Isaiah Likely walk and all that. So I think that there's going to be a little bit of maybe extra motivation to get Andrews a touchdown, kind of celebrating this this extension and showing hey, he's still got it. This is why we brought him back for 3 more years. Lamar has not thrown a touchdown in 3 straight weeks. He's going to look to his guy to get one done, and I think his guy is going to be Mark Andrews. So. Not that I feel great about it, but James Cook for Jake, Courtland Sutton for Fitz, Mark Andrews for me, who I don't think I've picked this year in any of my tight ends. So you can dominate your fantasy football league with Fantasy Pros Premium, now available free for 6 months when you deposit and place your first wager on one of our partner sports books. This is the easiest way to get full access to our top fantasy tools all season long. Go to fantasypros.com/premium to get started. We'll wrap things up there. Best of luck, everybody, getting into those playoff spots here, clinching up everything, and getting ready for a playoff run here over the next few weeks here, starting off in week 14. So for Jake and Fitz, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.